Hello everybody. So this is a stream to critique people from my Discord. If anyone is interested in their stuff being critiqued, just go ahead and join my Discord and yeah. So, cool. Just getting everything kind of set up first. My internet did die last stream, so if it starts to get really crummy, just let me know, and I guess there's nothing really I could do, but we'll figure it out. Okay, I'm gonna start with, who did this one again? Green. I'm gonna start with this one. I saw that you posted some other like landscapey type stuff, which I think it's really good, and their stuff's I'll take a look at it, but it's really solid. Like I saw that there are studies. Well, one of them was like a Scott Christensen painting or something, but I'm not great at landscapes. I would say if you're gonna want to learn that stuff, check out Taylor Olivis. He's really good at teaching that stuff for Squash Gosh. I'm more I guess feel more comfortable with like figurative stuff. But yeah, I guess to start with this, I'm gonna go into like a red thing. I'm assuming that you might watch this later on. If not, then you know, no big deal. But, yeah, so for this thing, I think there's a lot of really good stuff going on. You have like the general proportions going. There's like an obvious T. There's the the rule of thirds. Everything is kind of in its correct spot. Where I think you might be running into trouble is the nuance. Like everything is objectively correct. And this thing you did with the masking tape, I think is really cool too. And I think it adds like a level of texture and creativity you probably couldn't get otherwise. But yeah, so what I would say is try and group up your shadows a little bit more. Like I could tell you know what's going on, but when everything is this kind of messy, it throws off the whole, I guess, the whole drawing a little bit. It seems like things are kind of in a random places, so like that. This. It sort of takes away from the, I guess, story of whatever you're trying to draw. I assume this is hair up here, and I guess like the randomness of it and the I guess the shapes overall don't really indicate to me that it's hair. It might be a brain or something, like his head is cut open and you're trying to draw a zombie, but it doesn't immediately read. And breaking down your shapes into clear like 2-value read type things will do a lot for just like the legibility of the art. Like even if you're going for more of a zombie thing, having like a clear, like, okay, those are the eyes, this is the hair. I'm gonna assume this is a brain because it doesn't really have the same texture and stuff as the as the hair. I'm also just gonna be more intentional with the shapes here too in the hair. I'm gonna like overplay the fact that this is hair, so use like a bigger brush, kind of like make it more whooshy. I'm also not looking at the reference for this, so I might be incorrect in saying that, but I think moving towards the inclination of making it more whooshy does give off the impression of it being more organic-y. For the neck, Again, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on, especially with the texture and the energetic nature of what you're trying to draw. Like, but simplifying this into single shapes, and then like doing a clear cast shadow underneath does break the neck and the chin, or the neck and the actual head into two distinct pieces, which I think is important for, I guess, establishing the fact that you are looking at a head. Something that I learned from Eric Gist while I was training at the Watts Atelier is to try and avoid having just like the floating head thing going on. Like, as it is right now, it's hard, it's just like a floating head. It's not really sitting in space, or it's just like sitting in space and floating. But when you add shoulders, adding in like traps here, and then clavicle, it adds a little bit more like energy to the pose. You can kind of tell he's like, if this is indeed the pose you want to go with, he's kind of like facing forward a little bit. It gives you a little bit more opportunity with story, just like the pose of the guy. Yo, Sir Shido, what up, man? If you're curious, I'm doing critiques of people's work. If you'd be interested in a crit, I am taking stuff on Discord. I'm stronger with figurative stuff as well, if that matters to you. But yeah, with this, I think it's like going through and kind of outlining the shapes and making sure it's like exactly what it is, trying to throw in the cheekbones. I don't know if I'm making it better stylistically, but I think it's becoming a little bit more legible. And assuming that this is brains up here, I think that like I could tell you're kind of doing it here, but having some pretty distinct like skull shapes, like some very sharp. Let's do a different brush. Like kind of a sharp, shardy sort of thing, like it's breaking. And then, assuming that the skull did break open, you're gonna want to like, it wouldn't just like break and there wouldn't be any cracks or anything, but there would be like some breakage around the area. And then it does give you kind of a chance to play around with the like more organic-y sort of shapes of what the skull would look like, the brain would look like inside of the skull. I guess it wouldn't extrude past the skull itself, so kind of keeping it in line. Oh, what up, Ash Blossom? Yeah, I think I mean, when I draw personally, I tend to be more on the academic side, and I think it hurts my creativity, but I think in terms of legibility and just confidence in general, having legible, readable drawings, to me it makes drawing a lot more fun. Yeah, like the paying attention to like the fundamentals, like what the underlying structure is, I think is, I think once you can really understand that and do it intuitively, the creative side of drawing just kind of happens sort of like automatically. But it takes a long time to kind of get to that point where you're super comfortable with it. And going with a more like zombie theme sort of thing, like you can really play off the wrinkles of whatever this character is like. I'm not great at drawing mouths, but we'll see if I can pull something together. Something you could do with the contrast, like with zombies, the gore and the like asymmetry of the face is always something that you would pay attention to, just because it's like, you know, the guy's been messed up, he's been eaten or something, and in a car crash and turned into a zombie. So playing into the story of that, like, you can focus on the asymmetry of something and kind of mess it up. So, like, there are two ways of going about it. Like, it being on the left side creates kind of, you know, you can imply that this whole face of the side of the face is messed up. So if you know your anatomy, you can just go through and like really just accentuate the, like, let's say his entire side of the face was torn off. You can have like skin kind of torn apart. Maybe the nose is broken here, like some fleshy bits hanging off, and the nose hole thing, I don't know what it's called, it's kind of hanging out up here, ripped apart. I'm making a video right now about the utility of learning anatomy, and in cases like this it's really helpful because if you understand what the skull is doing, you could pretty easily tear it apart and kind of fix up what is working and what's not, and kind of experiment with stuff. Did you upload anything? Yeah. And then, I guess with trying to make this thing a little bit more interesting, kind of looks like me a little bit. Tell me if you tried to zombify me, because I could see this being a drawing of me. Oh, the animal studies. Oh, I missed that. Okay, yeah, I see him. Yeah. Here, I'll finish this one up and I'll... Yeah, I have those, actually have those saved on my... Ready to take a look at. What up, man? How you doing? Going well. I'm trying a new format out. So I am currently on a MacBook Air, which has limited USB ports, so I can't have a face cam if I'm doing the iPad recording. But I don't know if the face cam really matters. But yeah, with these sorts of creative drawings, you know, it's like you can really do whatever you want. You don't have to really like stick to the reference that much. You can start like playing around with like value and shading and stuff. I do think I lost a little bit of the, you know, art of what you were trying to say with this portrait, because mine is a little bit more like not as messed up looking in terms of like the actual like gore of it or whatever. Well, so since you're watching right now, I'll move back to this one in a second. So in terms of like when I look at your drawings, they're all really solid. There isn't really anything I would say in terms of like you understand like the structure, like you understand what's going on, you know, with like you understand that there's a shape here that turns into like a rib cage. It kind of goes down into a pelvis area, and then from there the legs extrude up. What I would say is like, well, like a couple things. Your lines are a little bit complicated. Oh, sick. Cool. What up, Tom Green? Sorry, I just moved on from your drawing, but I'll go back to it in a moment. But yeah, so for the structure of this, it's looking really solid. What I would say is like your lines are really complicated. Like even at this stage, you really shouldn't be using anything more than like CSI lines, which it sounds complicated, but CSI lines are literally like they are like C, which is like just a C line, S line, and an I line is just a straight. And what that means is, like, if I'm going to draw like just a basic figure, I'm really like doing sweeping. I'm messing that up a little bit. Just big sweeping lines to kind of figure out the gesture of what's happening. Like, it really isn't until much later in the drawing that you really should be using this like straight curve, straight, and then into this. Like your lines kind of don't really flow well together as independent pieces because there isn't the overall gesture of what's going on here. Like, for example, you could take something like this and move it, like make it a very simple S curve, and then you could build everything off that S curve. Oops. I am crummy at drawing animals, so forgive me if I mess up at all. But yeah, like, you can build that base. It's kind of like the Proco bean, if you've ever seen those. And then from there, you would start adding the legs. I guess I wanted to call them arms, but I guess the other front legs. And it's like it's all about taking like a singular piece of the body and explaining it in like a simple, like in a single simple line. Like for this lion leg, it could be as simple as like line 1, line 2, and then you start adding gesture and structure, like what's happening technically with the paw itself. But when you start doing this kind of stuff, it like I don't think people's brains necessarily work like computers. Like I think even Kim Jong-gi, he was thinking of the underlying structure of what's happening underneath, and thinking about it this way, like you're just trying to process too much information. Like you're trying to figure out how like the traps of the lion fit into the actual physical structure of it, plus the gesture of it, and all those things. I think it's just too much for anyone to handle, like no matter which kind of, like how good you are as an artist. If you're looking for like a homework assignment, I would like something that I do a lot personally is I do a lot of like just like making random shapes. Just to get my hand kind of moving. And then if I'm feeling up for it, I'll start like adding some like anatomy, some like traps. If I'm feeling brave, I'll just like add an arm. But my hand is always moving, and it's always like just thinking about the overall gesture of what the pose is doing. So for this lion, it's like, and then spine goes back here into the tailbone. Assuming that I know a little bit of anatomy for lions, but there's the hips. So I added a little bit of structure there, overlapped by the rib cage, into the neck, and then finally the head. But yeah, it's like all about just trying to use complicated or simple ideas to simplify a complex drawing into something that's easily understandable. It's just general critiques. Like if you want some more specific advice, feel free to just throw anything at me. I'm just going based off what stands out to me. Um, and one general thing, like this is totally a nitpick. This is not like a critique of you or your art at all. But I think that taking higher quality scans or photos of your drawings will do a lot just for making them look better. Like the shadows right now, it just kind of makes it look a little bit grainy and like not as good as it could. Like again, these are really nice drawings, and the quality of the photograph definitely does take away from the, I guess, interest for me personally of the drawings. How to draw birds? Kind of at me. Well, for anything, I like the if you could learn the structure of anything, you could quickly learn. Like the anatomy of everything is like simple enough to where you can kind of fake it. So I'm like not even looking at bird anatomy. It's like, you know, rib cage, kind of a bigger head into a beak. Into this red for just take that away. It kind of goes into everything I'm saying. Like if you can understand the basic gesture of like everything, you know, without even looking at reference, you could make like a somewhat convincing depiction of whatever you're trying to draw. Like I'm not by any means like an animal artist. There are people that are way better than me at it, but it's all about taking the nuance of what you learn from figure drawing and everything else and kind of throwing it in there. Like starting simple with something like just a circle and understanding the shapes and design of a creature like a bird or a lion or a turtle or whatever, and adding those more complex ideas on top of it and make it that thing. Hey Dom, what up, man? Cool. Nice. Here. Some Oppenheimer. I'm gonna go back to Tom's drawing in a moment. But okay, go back to this. Again, I don't know how much you were here for this, but I think there's a lot of stuff going on that's really cool. But I would say, like, at this stage, like, it's a really nice drawing, and you could start playing around with more just invented shadows. Like, a good exercise to do is just, like, pretend and create lighting scenarios. Like, if we're going to say the light is coming from here, like, just top right, like that, we can use that logic and start, like, I threw down just, like, a basic value thing. Just start inventing light. And I know you understand all this stuff, but it's always a good exercise to just try and do. You know, like light is falling on here, shadows, light here, light here. Oh, sick, awesome. Yeah, and again, like your Sir Saito, your stuff is looking really solid. It does look like you're practicing everything, you're understanding the objective forms. I am impressed by a lot of these drawings. I think the biggest thing you're missing is just like loose lines and gesture, because I could tell what the shapes are and what's going on, but there is some more energy that could be thrown into them. Yeah, like if I don't know what your goals are as an artist, but being able to just like play around with different lighting scenarios and just figure out like, what's the story? Like this story is different than if I was like a top lit sort of thing, you know? Um, like this is a very dramatic lighting scenario. Whereas like if it's more dead on, everything is like lit up. So assuming that this is kind of just like a more room light room soft shadow sort of deal. Kind of one neat trick that I learned just for portraits in general is that if you the cheeks and the nose generally have some red to them, and you could simulate that with just some like tone on there. If we move your drawing underneath, it does like create a little bit of shadow in your sketches, or a little bit of, I guess, color, like perceived color, if you're adding some just basic tone to that spot specifically. Like that. I think your anatomy, again, your proportions are actually pretty solid, and like anatomy is just an affect of proportion. I think like it lets you kind of design stuff and figure stuff out, and it gives you it helps you make more informed decisions based off the design and structure of what you're trying to sketch. Honestly, like I haven't really done much face studying. It's probably that hands and feet are probably my weakest points personally. But when it comes to the anatomy of the skull and the face, it's like let's see if I can draw a presentable one. Like just drawing a basic head, like just understanding the eye sockets are here, nose hole thing there, cheekbones here, the zygomatic arch, I think it's called, there. Like you can get pretty far just off this basic diagram. You really don't need much more beyond that. There is a lot of nuance, and I'm not saying you shouldn't study the skull, but like understanding that if you're drawing a head from 3/4, there's like a pretty significant, I forgot what it's called. Ahmed Aldori showed it to me, but just like a drawing a center line down the face, you can kind of, that the head is going to be like jutted out up front there. But I would say that like just get into the habit of just like anatomy is not something that you learn overnight, and it's like understanding the like objective shapes of like what like a vastus lateralis is not going to make you a better artist, but understanding the structure and how it fits into your style of drawing is the thing to do. And I was talking to a landscape painter about this. Like his anatomy studies helped him a lot with his landscape work, just because it helped him understand how shapes kind of fit together. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at the Oppenheimer thingy. Barbie. Um, yeah. Ken Yaris. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, he's really good. I love his stuff. He's also super modest as well. Um, he started out at the Grand Central Atelier in New York, and then he moved towards landscape painting when he realized it really wasn't for him. The whole like academic art route, Atelier, site size method, and I mean, but for him it was still useful to learn that stuff because, as I was saying before, it helps you understand just images in general, and the learning of anatomy is useful, like understanding the objective side of it. But it's I was looking at some of your other stuff, and the understanding that you have of just basic storytelling with lighting and shape and just color. I think all that stuff is playing into whatever kind of character stuff that you're going to move forward with at some point. Yeah, his stuff is super cool. So again, I'm not looking at the reference for this, but just a couple things stand out to me just from a pure like image storytelling perspective. Is it's kind of just like an even medium painting. I know it's not finished, but like something like having a kind of a whiter background, compositionally, probably a little bit too harsh. I think would help. Hang on, your shoulder itself. Yeah, I'll take a look at the reference as well. Just like, oh nice, nice study, Balmonk, that's sick. But yeah, just like adding some more. Yeah, so like here I'll add this to the image just for reference. Like just eyeballing this, you can kind of tell that the values on this image are brighter or like it creates a little bit more contrast in the face. So either like blasting this up a lot, like the actual face part, or blasting this way down. Like the image itself, the guy is very much the focal point. So I'm going to change gears from making him the focus to making, or the background the focus, to making him just a lot wider. And I'm not going to focus on the nuance of the shapes. I think that if you were to go and do something like really nail down his silhouette, I think it would do a lot for the readability of him. Like that portrait side angle is really important to pull off for these sorts of portraits, I guess pieces in general, because the way you have it now, it's kind of hard to tell, like, is the bridge of his nose just like lumped out? Is it kind of like it almost looks like a convex kind of form, like it kind of looks like it's jutting out a bit, so, like that. Whereas focusing on the like silhouette specifically, I think it can do a lot for solving the piece. Like I can tell you kind of you did, I think you did get the mouth shape, but because the contrast of the face and the background aren't that legible. It kind of blends together. And then if we're gonna go in and just blast his nose way up. You kind of have an edge here that just like goes straight, but because it's like you really have an opportunity here to like follow the contours of the nose to just push that idea that the shadow really is just wrapping around his face. Darker. This shape right here, if you really squint your eyes, like when you're doing these sorts of drawings, you really should squint as much as you can, and when you do, you can kind of see, well, first of all, the proportions of it. If we take a plumb line from the actual reference itself, you can kind of see his cheekbone, make it red just for legibility, goes, you know, it goes directly down, so that's his cheekbone, but for yours, his cheekbone is kind of launched way back here. So going based off like the more anatomy of what's happening in his face, you can kind of go ahead and, I guess, fix this up to be a little bit more accurate, which I think does help with the storytelling. Because that contrast, because, you know, he is the focus, and having that contrast there, I think, does help quite a bit with what's going on. And again, this hat is a lot whiter in the... Probably shouldn't go... I'm going full white just to drive home the purpose. But this hat could probably go brighter. Shadow here. His shirt is pretty light, but it does contrast his suit, just based off the color of it. I'm just gonna blast it just for point. Again, for anyone watching, I'm over exaggerating the lights. Normally you wouldn't make it this white if you're gonna draw this, but just focusing on the craziness of trying to pop these values, you can really make the piece a lot more interesting and legible if you can focus on that stuff. This hand is sort of wide. Hands are not my specialty, so don't judge me too hard. You also kind of have an opportunity to over-exaggerate this pipe. Yeah. It's like focusing on the actual two-value read of something, like you're saying, is like the first and foremost most important thing to do when doing an illustration, because it's really I guess it's really easy to fall into detail, like focusing on the actual lightning pole, I can't remember the name, the light wire thingies, the ground itself, you know, all the stuff, but focusing on just like what's happening in the image. Let's see if I can some basic value. So, suit. I'll just make his hands white because they're like his flesh is like the whitest part of the image. Assume that's his hand. Can add some just basic value if you'd like. There's a knee going up and kind of turning into a cross. I think is an important part of the piece, so try to force that. His arm here. And then I guess it's kind of, when I squint, the background is a little bit darker. I'm also just experimenting with stuff as I go. So I'm trying out kind of a gray, more mid-tone background, just because I'm like, okay, what works and what doesn't? Because if this is more gray, or one value, you can maybe make this darker to accentuate the hand coming up. And if you're able to like think that way, just in terms of the like one or two value, or just focusing on the contrast, the readability of what you're trying to do becomes a lot easier. There's a lot of nuance you can go into with this thing, but if I were you, I would say like if you can simplify your as like a homework assignment. Simplify your thing into just like a 2-value thingy as fast as you can. Use just like a big brush to show. Oh yeah. So yeah, you're really just trying to simplify everything into the biggest possible shapes you can before getting bogged down by the values. So suit yours. Just gonna add like a basic value underneath. I'm doing this on Procreate, but I'd recommend using the lasso brush if you're going to do this in Photoshop. And with doing it this way, like experimenting with different lighting scenarios, like face, make it brighter, hat, and add just like a horizon line. Can add some just like basic mountains. And then let's just say the sky is a little bit brighter. Actually, let's just pretend there's some clouds in the sky. Like, you can invent stuff to add interest as well. That's part of why you're doing this stuff in the first place. What up, Potato Man? Oh, fuck, it's Rembert. Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but... What up, Potato Man? The artist that inspired me, I really like... let's see... Well, I got into art because I really liked World of Warcraft. Wei Wang, I was a giant fan of. Just like character art. I like Trinkanuga stuff quite a bit. Kim Jung-gi. I watched a lot of Cynics videos back in the day. But the artist I like nowadays, like my favorite artist, which I might do a video on this at some point, is John Singer Sargent. I think he is like, to me, my favorite artist of all time. Like his philosophy and just the way he painted and the stuff he painted, I think is just like the best. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Yeah, I mean, with Sargent too, he's just like, his shapes are really cool, and his reason for teaching, his reason for painting, I also really admire it. And the like, simplicity of his paintings too, just the focus on like good brush strokes and all that, I think is also very good to his artwork. Okay, so for this one, I'm just gonna look at it for a second and just. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. Like I again, I'm not looking at the reference, but I suspect that the likeness is there. It is obviously like it's a very feminine face. I can tell it's a woman. The skin color and skin tones, like it does look like a person, which I think like obviously that's the first and foremost thing, is try to make your thing look real. Okay, here's the reference. I guess where I would start is just structure and some proportion stuff. So I'm gonna go in just with a. How legible is this one? General. So let's look. Sorry. So yeah, I guess just general structure stuff. I'm gonna start with the neck, because right now it doesn't look like the neck is really, like, it looks like it's like a lollipop, like that. Which I like, looking at the reference, there is more of an angle. So the neck in the anatomy, or the reference, is doing something more like that. And just going just based off the face shape and anatomy. Her forehead is a little bit big. Her face is kind of scrunched down to me, it looks like. And because of that, her nose is looking kind of off as well. It looks sort of flat. Like you're missing out on a little bit of the just like the angle of the face. So the nose does something like this. It goes in and then it kind of overlaps here. And the head does kind of act as like a series of balls and shapes and stuff. Reaching down a little bit. Her actual proportions on her face are a little bit incorrect. So the mouth. And taking like something you can do to kind of easily figure this stuff out is just plumb lines. So if you take the reference and you just draw a line from here to here, you can kind of tell the jaw is like approximately a little bit lower than that, so you can assume there could be like a more of a break here. And looking at angle going like that way, you can, like using that plumb line going here and then an angle going down there, you could tell where the bottom of the chin is. Because you know where the bottom of the chin is just based off the rule of thirds, like 1, 2, 3. And then her forehead might be a little bit larger, but it's about a third. So this should be equal to this. Hair would be there. Down, just because it wraps the head. For the eyes, you know, they're obviously parallel or connected to each other, so you can draw a line to get that. Because if you understand just nose anatomy and structure, you can assume that it does go up, understanding some perspective. There's the bridge of the nose here. So maybe the eyes will probably go a little bit lower. Eyes here. The eyes do sit in a ball socket. Your eyes are a little bit far apart and one is bigger than the other. Using basic structure. Ear seems to be in close enough spot. And then in terms of like when somebody is drawing, like obviously this does not look like a pretty drawing. It's not like I think, you know, somebody would be less likely to hang this up on the wall than obviously you're painting. But if you can include some of this structure into the thing that you're doing itself, it's going to make the thing the whole thing look a little bit more believable. And beyond that, you're going to have more control over the sort of portraits you want to be able to do in the future. So I guess I'm not much of a painter, but I'll do my own version of this drawing. I'm gonna get one thing real quick. Give me 2 seconds. I got a Cintiq glove off Amazon that I'm going to use. Glove. Okay, I'm back. This messes me up at all. So I guess, yeah, drawing, I will throw the reference in onto my canvas so you guys can see it. So drawing this, I will also do a little draw over of her as well. The way that I would start a portrait like this is just with a circle. And I will just like do it until I feel like I'm doing the right shape. Some structure. I might totally flub this drawing, but let's see. Okay, just fine. Switch to this brush. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, I'm just kind of showing the way I would draw this to include more of the structure in it. The benefit of digital, obviously, you can have more control over the shapes you want. I feel like right now it's kind of a masculine looking face shape. You can kind of get around that by just trying to go softer and a little bit more like triangular a little bit with shapes you try and do. For something like the hair you had in your painting, I think it looks really solid, but I think you are losing out on some of the nuance of the strands and the gesture of it, like doing some bigger sweepy kind of moves with what's happening. And using it as kind of an opportunity to act as like an abstract piece, part of of the actual piece itself. Also frames the head as well, so you can, it does act as like a, yeah, like a compositional piece, and also just something that can help drive the proportions and all that kind of stuff. Now, let's see. Yeah, if you could send that over, the underdrawing. Your um, your professor is totally wrong by telling you that studying Sergeant will make Europe bad. I think that everyone should study Sergeant. Nice. I'm flubbing this portrait a little bit. And thanks for the kind words. I do have to release more episodes. I've been a little bit lazy on the Sketchy Van podcast front. Yeah, I mean, like, the drawing itself that you have for this, I think is really solid. Like, it's, I think, actually better proportionally than your painting. Like, you have the neck thing that I was talking about earlier fixed there. To me, it just seems like you lost a little bit of the shapes and you wanted to start including everything. The nose structure is there as well. I could tell you kind of fixed it in post. But then, yeah, there was some stuff in the actual painting itself that that you did lose. The forehead still, to me, seemed a little bit wide and big. Like the piece as a whole. Let's see. You might be able to just like be a little bit thinner. Maybe like that. There's a little bit of a like that sort of thing going on that you're missing out on. She's facing up just the tiniest amount that I think would also improve it. It's not like her chin would be showing or anything, but I think that would improve the structure of the pose. I don't feel like I'm really great at drawing female portraits, so I might move on to something else kind of soon, because I don't know if I'm qualified. There are definitely people that are better at it than I am. Yeah, portraits are something that I did not study as much of when I was in school, which I kind of wish I did. That and hands. Let's see. Yeah, the Scar Urban stuff is, I think, is also very good. Yeah, I draw a lot of men. But... yeah, with this, I'd say you have a lot. You really did do a nice job here. You can see the influence from, I think, Sam Does Art. What I would say again is just like really try to nail down the structure stuff. Try and make it more intuitive. Like really break down that nose and shape into like whatever you think looks good. Your color and your like feminine style, I think, is there. Maybe in terms of the painting itself, other than the proportion stuff, you could probably play around a little bit more with the brushstrokes. Like this edge on her cheek right here is very hard. And same thing with the hair up here. Which I think, I mean, it might read that way on the image, but taking a little bit more artistic liberty and kind of going in and softening things up a little bit, even on the jaw here, getting some lost edges in there, I think would do a lot just for the creative side of the piece itself. Even for the, like if you squint and look at the hard lines themselves, like the hair and the ceiling don't create this sort of edge. There's a little bit of like a blurring there. At least I see it that way. And having these like really sharp edges and shapes in your painting, it's not really how humans see. Like when you look at something, you don't see like, oh, nose is this sharp or anything. You look at the eyes and then you see like a blurry version of everything else in the background. And when every shape is this sharp, it kind of detracts from the like storytelling or focal point of the image. And I guess going into the hair with that same concept, there is a little bit of an opportunity to see. Kind of play around with a little bit more of the hair shape. And thinking of the painting that way, like even beyond just the structure stuff, paying attention to what's actually happening with the style of it, like where do you want things to blend, all that kind of stuff. I think it makes the painting seem a little bit more realistic, actually. When you draw eyes, they normally wouldn't be that nuanced either. The iris would sit a little bit more into the actual. Let's see. And just like personal taste, I like things to be a little bit more abstract, but it's totally up to you the way you'd want things to go. Same thing with the lips. You can kind of blend the shapes together, make things like a little bit less legible. Other than the structure thing, that's probably the thing that stands out to me. Is just the like Barbieification of the art. Trying to treat it like hair instead of just like a plastic thing attaching to the head directly. Welcome from Argentina. Thanks for hopping in. something that I learned at the Watts is like if you like just go back and like blur everything, and you could go back and redefine the shapes later on. Choose a hard road. Thinking about it this way, it's like, okay, it's a little bit more, you have a little bit more liberty to go back and like make an eye shape that failed mistake. Failed experiment. But yeah, like, but the idea of going back and just unifying the shapes a little bit more, I think, is something that can help a piece out quite a bit. Saturation. I'm gonna do this black and white because I want to, and this brush has some hue saturation that I'm not liking. Yeah, I think the trying to go back and do the blurring thing and experiment with different rendering styles or different, I guess, points of like playing around with lost edges, I think can help somebody's painting a lot. I know it helped me quite a bit. When I was learning. And then I guess just one other thing as well is like looking at the just black and white version of this painting on its own. There, I think, could be a little bit clearer of a value structure. I don't know if this is like a one-for-one version of what it might be, but there might be able to be an opportunity for there to be more shadow in the face, or even more contrast in the hair. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna move on to the next thing. Let's see. I think somebody was asking about value. Oh, how do you become better at value control? I would say just study it. I mean, it's one of those things where when it comes to learning value, the breaking things down into two value reads, I think, is one of the more important things you can do. So if you're going to draw a face, like being able to understand, like, okay, head, like, okay, nose there, eye sockets here, mouth. And understanding a two-value read will quickly be able to let you, like, just the 1-2 value makes the thing a lot more readable. And once it is readable, it adding the nuance of mid-tone and light value becomes a lot simpler. It's easy with something like portraits just because there's a lot of reference online for just basic, you know, spotlight portrait reference. But yeah, like being able to break down a reference into just a two-value read will really help you understand value and readability a lot faster. Just drawing a basic figure. And for anyone that wants critique on their art, feel free to just throw it in the critique channel on my Discord. So there we go. Got a little portrait guy standing around. I've done a lot of figure drawing, so I understand like where the shadows will go. So getting that two-value read for like how the shapes fit together. Understanding that, okay, the rib cage is here, so there is a shadow that goes underneath here. Rib cage here, the actual insertion of it. There's like a shadow here. The Charles Bargue stuff, if you've ever seen that, I think is a really good thing to look at for this stuff. Bring it up. What they do with a lot of ateliers is you'll study a lot of two-value drawing. So just looking at this image on its own, you could take something like whatever this reference was and break it down into a simple land drawing like this. Like, it's really not complicated. It's just a, you know, you could just count the amount of lines in it. It's breaking down every single shape into a simple, like, okay, eye here, there's probably some shadow there, shadow here. And then taking that into the drawing itself. The eye structure goes here, but then he created another shadow here to be able to emphasize this shadow falling onto the eyelid itself. He has, like, you know that this is kind of like an under lip of the eyelid, so there is a dark part here. And getting into exercises where you're taking a reference and breaking it down into this simple two-value thing will do a lot for fixing your stuff. What up, guys, in the Discord? like if you go to the Grand Central Atelier or the Watts Atelier or something, you will spend a long time doing these sorts of exercises, like 20-minute lands where you're just like looking at a pose or a reference and breaking it down into this sort of thing. Because like once you get into like, so something that Jeff Watts used to say all the time is like the starts are the most important part of your piece. If you can get into a habit of having really good starts, the finishes kind of take care of themselves. Like this right here is a lot harder to do than this, because once you fill in the shadows, it's like pretty much already there. Like it's just a little bit of nuance with edges and shape that you have to get into. And I guess everything else is like fill this in, smooth out this edge, and it's pretty much a readable head. Oh, cool. This is a sick illustration. A dot dot dot. I will save it. Okay, so I'm gonna disclaim this that I'm not an illustrator, and I probably couldn't do something like this just based off my current skill set. You did a really good job here. The storytelling is really fun. Characters are all readable. Perspective is cool. Design is cool. Is this like a paint over of a Blender scene or like a SketchUp scene, or is this all from imagination? This one too. I guess to start, for me as a consumer of this piece, I'm guessing it's for a video game, and it's probably for like a loading screen or something like that. But the way my eye moves is it's kind of moving all over the place. It's kind of hard to narrow down some stuff. Give me a minute to just like look at this. I don't want to come up with something to say just to have something to say. So if I can't think of anything to say, I'm just gonna not say anything, because it is a really cool piece of artwork. If I don't know, yeah, I guess like there is some stuff with the structure and the actual like way things are sitting on the floor and ground and everything, but I don't think you don't understand how that stuff works. Like the guns and stuff indicate you really know what's happening. It does look like a little bit of a 3D model paint over. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this right here to me looks like it's kind of ripped from the 3D model thing, but I'm not bashing that. I know it's like a technique and stylistic thing. This guy back here, you know, again, you might not notice it right away, but it being in the center of the image and having this overlap and having most of his body missing is a little bit distracting to me. Especially since like my eye moves in this way where it goes like this a little bit, and having my eye go from here to here, it is a little bit distracting to see that this entire chunk of this guy's shoulder is missing. And because of that, I think it kind of it does look a little bit, I don't know if sloppy is the word, but you know, it does kind of take me out of the piece in general. I don't know the direct purpose of this, but based on my own personal taste, I like there to be more of a singular focus. It does look like a mood set, or like a piece of concept art for a video game, to where it's just trying to set the mood of what like the resistance base might look like of a post-apocalyptic world. But if this were introducing characters that are going to be important to the story, maybe having one of them be a little bit more focused. Again, I'm not a concept artist, so take everything I'm saying with just like as like a stream of consciousness sort of thing. But the personal preference of like having something to hang up on my wall, or something that I would save to my like art folder for like stuff I'd want to be inspired by, having more work done on the characters, making them a little bit more fleshed out, maybe a little bit more contrast and rendering in the characters themselves. But you know, like everything I'm saying is really kind of a nitpick. The contrast of the light and the colors, I think, is very cool. Again, I would say overall, like great job. Like I don't have any overarching critiques of technical perspective or storytelling or anything. If you guys would be interested, I could get like Rembert to join me for one of these streams. If you're still here, Rembert, you could hang out. About the result of it. Oh, sorry, I was looking at Discord for it. So like thinking of it from a more Craig Mullinsy kind of perspective, it is a little bit muddy. There is some stuff cool going on, but like it feels a little bit like some of the things are given a little bit less attention than others. Like to me, if I were to see this on ArtStation or something, it wouldn't stand out to me in the way that a Craig Mullins painting would. And I think because of that, like again, like treating this as something that's trying to move towards his kind of style. His pieces are very like, they have a pretty, bring a couple up on the screen. It might be kind of similar. Again, I'm not like, I think you are a better painter than I am, so I'm saying this as somebody as like more of a consumer of your artwork versus somebody that has the kind of experience you have doing these sorts of pieces. Oops. I think there's a little bit more opportunity for this area. Specifically, like this section of the painting is a little bit lackluster. Like it feels like everything is kind of driving me towards this part of the room, like this desk, this character that's kind of pointing in this direction. And when I see here, it's like comparing it to a Craig Mullins painting. Like there's a very obvious focal point. It's like this guy, and everything is kind of pointing up into him. Like even the characters are facing him and stuff. And in terms of like telling a story and setting the mood, I might like it more if these characters were doing something a little bit more than just sitting at this desk or playing cards or something. It again, it is sort of a subjective thing. But yeah, like the muddiness of this area, I think, could probably be something that is a little bit more fleshed out. But yeah, and again, great job on this. It's a really solid painting. Other than maybe that like nitpicky stuff, there isn't really much I'd say. Let's see if we can go to the next one. Okay, taking a look at this. Woken. Again, first impressions. I totally, I mean, I would like to paint more stuff like the thing you painted here, personally. Like, I got into art because I really like this stuff, and I kind of, like, gravitate more, just, I can get myself to do the academic stuff a little bit easier, but yeah, it does feel like maybe like a long like book thing. It's like a 3-page spread or something, 2-page spread. Having more character interaction, like all the characters kind of facing outward, I think does, like, okay, they're facing outward, they're kind of face inward. Having more character interaction, I think, might be cooler. Like for all of Craig Mullins' paintings, I think pretty much they're all like they're all facing the same way, they're all going the same direction, or if they're not, there's like an obvious like focus to what's happening in the image. Like I'm sure you've seen. For this one, it's like none of the characters are really interacting with each other as a whole, but there's this giant ass ball in the center, which like pulls your eye pretty immediately, and it's kind of just like that, and then the city are the focus, and then the characters around. It's like, okay, this is like a rich person party. They're just kind of sitting around and hanging out. And there is like a bunch of muddiness there in terms of like, you know, the pole goes through these people and stuff, so it's not like super legible. But when I look at your paintings versus, or at least this painting specifically, and I've seen some of your other stuff in the Discord, which I think has been really cool as well, the single focus of the painting, I think, is something that makes his stuff stand out a lot. And I guess just like the interactions between characters, like he does a lot of like kingly, knightly stuff, and it's a knight standing in front of a bunch of people being crowned or something, or an army standing around with the general at the top, or I'm just looking at his paintings in general online. A shipwreck one where there's like an obvious, like there's a guy standing around on a ship while everyone else is kind of floating away. Again, I think the interaction between the characters would probably do a lot for the painting itself. Yeah, and again, I'm just disclaiming all that with saying I probably couldn't do what you did. So again, great job on that. Okay. So with this, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on with this character stuff. The anatomy is cool. The shapes are cool. I wouldn't say anything starting off with that. I would say their silhouettes could probably be improved a little bit more. There's some weird shape stuff going on here. But when I look at the actual silhouettes of the character themselves, again, there's like a subjective nature to this, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm just gonna take this guy on his own. I think the silhouette does a lot for indicating his pose, but I think it could do something for, I guess, like emphasizing the coat that he has going on, the sword, the scrolls on his back. There's some negative space here I'm missing, but I'm saying this from the perspective, again, from somebody who's not as much of a designer as I am just somebody who draws some stuff. I mean, when it comes to the tilt of the head, I think it looks, again, for me, it looks fine. I'm gonna step away a little bit from just like the technical drawing stuff, because I could tell you really know what's going on. Like, there might be something here with the shoulders themselves. Kind of, like, I think the shoulder should be up here based off the torso when it's down here, which it kind of looks like it's protruding off, like, his like chest or something. But like, and something like that might be fixed by just like bumping that back and then maybe adding some stuff over here to emphasize that he's turning a little bit more. Yeah, like the silhouette, like there might be an opportunity for like maybe emphasizing a belly. I don't want to change your character either. But the silhouette itself, like if you're designing for games or for movies, or animation, for games especially, focusing on the silhouette is one of the more important things you could do for games, because you're, like, when a player is playing the game, they have to be able to read your character as an enemy or as an ally or just an NPC very, very quickly. And having any ambiguity to what the character is will just make the whole design of what you're trying to do a lot less successful. Like if you're designing something for League of Legends, one of their characters might be very spiky, you know, like, and like the proportions like this, and it's like very much like an evil character to be spiky and triangle-y and all that kind of stuff. And immediately, especially when, because the players of League of Legends are looking at the characters from kind of an like overhead RTS style kind of way, uh, focusing on that, they can very quickly like read Cho'Gath or something, or whoever else is like an evil or positive character. And with this, like, the silhouette of the sword and all that kind of stuff, and the trench coat as well, I think does some for like detracting from the overall I guess like style of the character, having it be more form-fitting, or even just something that's like I'm trying to do this in a way to where it's not changing the actual story of what you're trying to tell, but changing the pose up a little bit. And yeah, I'm feeling a little bit tired at this point, so I'm not able to articulate as well, but yeah, I don't personally believe that like draw overs in this case are that helpful, because you're drawing everything very well. I don't know what is happening here. I assume this is another sword or something popping out of his, like, the hip area. It's kind of hard for me to tell what that is. And this interaction with this character over here, again, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I think there is a way of changing up their pose and their silhouette to emphasize their, like, the characters themselves to be a little bit more memorable and emphasize their individuality. Because right now it's just like the whole thing is a little bit lumpy. Like, these characters don't necessarily fit that well together. Like, her on her own, I don't know if she would read. Let's see if she would. Oh, it does feel like it does feel like a girl to me. Again, I'm impressed by this drawing. I think it's a really solid character design, and there's some really cool stuff going on. I could totally see this in a design like Art of World of Warcraft book, or Art of something book, as the basis for, you know, father-daughter character, or, you know, like the Joel and Ellie, Last of Us vibe sort of thing. Again, the character does feel feminine to me. It feels like a tomboy, especially with the ruffles around the neck here. Again, that might not come across for everybody, but that's what it comes across for me. The rendering on the arm, I think, is really solid. Hand is really good. Sword is really cool. But to me, again, the thing that stands out most is this silhouette being a little bit kind of lumpy. You can tell it's two characters standing next to each other, but having more negative space here or something, I think might do a lot for the piece itself. I think I'm kind of slowing down. My brain's getting a little bit foggy. I might call it a day, unless I'll open it up for 10 more for it. I guess 1 more minute if somebody else wants to throw something in the critique channel of my Discord. Yeah, I appreciate everyone who hopped in. I'd like to do this stuff more often. I enjoy doing it. And yeah, my personal strength is something, like, I'm not a great designer. I don't think I'm a great painter. I think I'm more just like academic anatomy. I could see that. Um, I think it's stuff that, like, given the complexity of the drapery and everything else going on, and if this were to be used as, like, even concept art for a game or something, it might not even be rejected based on the quality of the drawing. There might be critiques there, but the I don't know. The feet to me look like they do belong to this character's body, and this guy might be this right here doesn't. It looks like this foot might be able to move slightly to the left, but yeah. Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna hop off for the day. Thanks to everyone who hopped in. I will make it an announcement in my Discord if I'm going to stream again. And yeah, have a good one, everybody. I will see you all later.